Every day, your brain quietly erases information, names, faces, conversations, entire moments from your life. In fact, by the end of today, you'll forget most of what happened. Not because your memory is failing, because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. At first, that sounds impossible. We're constantly told that forgetting is a problem, that having a good memory is always better. Students spend years trying to remember more. Professionals try not to forget important meetings. Parents worry about becoming more forgetful as they get older. But what if we've been looking at memory the wrong way? What if forgetting isn't a flaw, but one of the most important abilities the human brain ever developed? To understand why, we first need to answer a much bigger question. What exactly is a memory? Most people imagine memory as if the brain were a giant computer. Every experience gets stored somewhere. Every conversation is saved. Every face is recorded forever. But that's not how the brain works. Your brain doesn't record your life like a video camera. It rebuilds your memories every time you remember them. Imagine reading the same book over and over again. Except every time you close it, a few words disappear. Some sentences change. New details appear that were never there before. Eventually, the story is no longer exactly the same. Memory works surprisingly similarly. Every time you remember something, your brain briefly takes that memory apart before putting it back together again. And during that process, small details can disappear. Others can change. Some may even be replaced without you ever noticing. That's why two people can experience the exact same event and remember it completely differently years later. Neither person is necessarily lying. Their brains simply rebuilt the memory in different ways. But here's where things become even stranger. Your brain doesn't try to remember everything. It couldn't. Every single day, your senses receive an unimaginable amount of information. Every sound, every face, every smell, every word, every movement, every object around you. If your brain tried to permanently store every detail, it would quickly become overwhelmed. So instead, it makes decisions. Constant decisions. What should stay? What can disappear? Most of those decisions happen without you ever realizing it. Think about yesterday. Can you remember every person you walked past? Probably not. Can you remember every sentence you heard? Every song that played in the background? Every car that drove by? Almost certainly not. And that's a good thing, because forgetting allows your brain to focus on what matters most. Imagine walking into a library. Every single day, millions of new books are delivered, but none of the old books are ever removed. Eventually, finding anything would become almost impossible. Your brain faces a similar challenge. Without forgetting, important memories would constantly compete with meaningless ones. The grocery receipt from 3 years ago would be treated with the same importance as your wedding day. Your first day of school would compete for space with the random advertisement you saw yesterday. The brain simply can't work that way, so it prioritizes. And sometimes, it prioritizes in ways that seem completely unfair. You forget someone's name just seconds after they introduce themselves, but somehow, you still remember an embarrassing moment from 10 years ago. Why? Because memory isn't based only on information. It's heavily influenced by emotion. The stronger an emotional experience is, the more likely your brain is to keep it. Fear, joy, shock, love, embarrassment. These emotions tell your brain, this might matter later. And so, those memories receive special treatment. Meanwhile, ordinary moments quietly disappear. Not because they weren't real, but because your brain decided they weren't important enough to keep. This explains something almost everyone has experienced. You may struggle to remember what you had for lunch 3 days ago, but you can vividly remember where you were during one of the biggest moments of your life. Your graduation, your first kiss, a terrible accident, the day you received life-changing news. Those memories feel different, not because your brain recorded them more accurately, but because it decided they were worth protecting. And that raises an even bigger question. If your brain is constantly choosing what to remember, who or what is making those choices? Scientists have spent decades trying to understand exactly how the brain decides which memories deserve to stay. And while we still don't know every detail, one thing has become increasingly clear. Your memories aren't stored based on importance alone. They're stored based on usefulness. Those two things aren't always the same. Think about learning how to ride a bicycle. The first time you tried, your brain paid attention to everything: where your hands were, how hard you pushed the pedals, how you balanced, how it felt to fall. Every attempt taught your brain something new. But after years of riding, something interesting happens. You no longer think about any of those details. You simply ride. The skill became automatic. Your brain stopped storing every individual ride because it no longer needed to. Instead, it kept the skill itself. This is one of the brain's greatest strengths. It doesn't just remember information, it extracts patterns, rules, habits, skills. The details disappear, but the lesson remains. The same thing happens throughout your entire life. You probably don't remember every conversation you've ever had, but you remember how certain people made you feel. You don't remember every mistake you made as a child, but you remember what those mistakes taught you. The facts slowly fade away. The knowledge stays. Perhaps forgetting isn't the opposite of learning. Perhaps it's part of learning itself, and that leads to another fascinating discovery. People with extremely rare conditions that allow them to remember almost every day of their lives don't necessarily have better memories. In many cases, they describe it as exhausting. Imagine remembering exactly what happened on an ordinary Tuesday, 15 years ago. Not just the important moments, everything, every conversation, every mistake, every disappointment, every embarrassing moment. Your mind would never truly move on. Forgetting gives us something incredibly valuable: perspective. Pain becomes softer. Old failures lose their weight. Heartbreak slowly becomes a memory instead of a wound. Without forgetting, life would become unbearably heavy. Perhaps that's why the brain doesn't try to preserve every detail. It protects what helps you move forward, and quietly lets go of much of the rest. The strange thing is, most of us spend our lives wishing we had a perfect memory. But a perfect memory may not be a gift at all. It could become one of the greatest burdens a human being could carry. Because remembering everything would also mean forgetting nothing. Every regret, every loss, every painful experience would remain just as vivid as the day it happened. Maybe that's why evolution never tried to build the perfect memory. Instead, it built a useful one that remembers what helps us survive, learn, adapt, and slowly let go of what no longer serves us. So the next time you forget someone's name or can't remember where you left your keys, don't immediately assume your brain is failing. It may simply be doing what it has spent millions of years learning to do. Because in the end, the human brain isn't designed to remember everything. It's designed to remember what matters most. And perhaps the greatest proof of how extraordinary our memory truly is isn't what it chooses to remember. It's what it quietly allows us to forget.